great being able to speak into an atmosphere that is rich with God's presence, and feel like I'm standing on solid ground, and that there's already an openness to what God is doing. I wouldn't be surprised if God has already been touching. In fact, I'm certain that God has already been touching people this morning as we've been worshiping, that his Spirit has been resting on you, and you're feeling something going back into shape, a bit like your back being out of kilter, suddenly feeling like it's in line again. The Spirit's at work in us, and it's beautiful to be part of. And Tori, thank you for your prayers. Beautifully put. I wanted to clap at the end of that, and my amen, because, it picks up so many true longings of all of our hearts. Beautiful. So, welcome again. If this is your first week here ever, well, just to let you know, we have been walking through a series talking about sexuality, about relationships and sex, and we're in week 3. And so we're not starting here. So if today feels like it's a bit of an abrupt thing, it's because we've already been talking about it for a couple of weeks. If you've missed out on any of that and you'd like to follow up, thank you so much to Richard for filming it and putting it on YouTube. You just have to go onto the church website, look under the heading Teaching, and then click on the YouTube bit, and then you'll get straight into the latest one, whichever one you want to go to. But basically, we started off with this, under the heading of beauty, beautiful people, and we went back to the beginning in Genesis. But we started being very aware and very sensitive to the complexity of the situation that we face ourselves in with our own lives and as a community, in terms of how we are dealing with sex, how we're thinking about our relationships, how we've coped with past successes and failures, the wounds that we carry, all of that complexity. And so we know that we're traveling on difficult grounds. We know that we need to be sensitive to each other, and we're praying for God's Spirit to help us to unravel some of these things, but with truth, and to be courageous, to speak the truth, but always to do it with love at the center of everything. My dream for this series is that we will, in some way, have some stronger sense of some fixed points in a world where we feel overwhelmed talking about this subject, in a world which is literally overwhelmed with this subject and overwhelmed with information about this subject. There is remarkably few fixed points about it, remarkably few certainties. If you ask anyone, everybody will have different ideas about it. And yet, I believe, and I hope that all of us at the end of this, I'm really praying that we will feel and know that there are some fixed points of which we must that will always be fixed. And that these will help guide us personally if we align ourselves to the star. If we align ourselves to the fixed point in the sky, then things will begin to make sense for us. So here are some of the fixed points. Started in week 1. And I said that creation is, we know this from the way it looks. Creation is fruitful, creation is sexual, and creation is gendered. But we don't just know this from our observation. We know this because the story reveals it to us. So Genesis chapter 1 layers this, and it makes it very clear. And God blesses. The first thing that God blesses in Genesis, page 1, chapter 1 of the beginning of all things, is the reproductive organs of animals. Did you know that? That before all things, before anything else, before he's created, before he blesses anything else, he blesses the animals to go and bear fruit. In fact, before he does that, he blesses the plants to bear fruit and to be seed-bearing. And then eventually he comes to us, and we become blessed in the same way. So one of our primary things is that we are to be fruitful, we are to be sexual, and we are gendered male and female in order to be fruitful together. So that's our first point. The second fixed point, and this was last week, is that there is a desire going on in our hearts. Desire is the engine for everything. It gets us up in the morning. It drives us on. It's the grit that fires your heart. It's the passion that makes you alive. Without desire, the people perish. Without a vision of something ahead of us, we all dry up. We're designed to desire. We're desiring beings. In fact, we got this from God, who is desire himself. God is not neutral like Plato thought he was. He is not flat. He is not absent of emotion. He is rich, pungent with emotion, longing. And he creates in his Trinitarianness, in his Father, Son, and Holy Spiritness, he relates to himself in longing and desire and affection. And there's a dance between all the three characters or personalities of the Trinity. And then out of that love is birthed creation. Out of that desire is birthed creation. Do you get the image? Out of the desire of the Trinity, they birth creation. The Spirit and Jesus are all there with the Father. And out of the three of them being united as one, they give life to us. And we become the focus of God's desire. We are desired and we are desiring people. Desire is the engine of everything. Desire is God-made. If you've got a desire, that's because you are like God. Do not fear your desires, but see them like a kite. Yes, something to catch the wind. Set sail. Let the wind of the Spirit blow into your desires and take you to the destination where God wants, where their appropriate ending. So desire is God-made and God-given. And desires are designed to lead us to a destination. And I said last week that union is the ultimate destination of our desires. We know this. We feel this. When are we most alive? People tell me that they are most alive when they're walking on the hills. I don't know if you feel this, that you're most alive. You suddenly have these moments of connection between yourself and creation, yourself and other people. You feel like this, and you just go, oh. The Titanic moment, at the front of the boat. That moment when you're kind of like, yes! This is fantastic! I'm alive! And live. Just fantastic. The hills are alive with the sound of music. We're designed for union with our creation, with our Creator. And why is it? Do you know no one has to force anyone, no one forces anyone to go to Glastonbury? I mean, there is no police to make us do this, to make us waste our money, spend our money. No one forces us to live uncomfortably for a week and to walk around in Wellington boots and mud. We don't do that. We don't do that because someone is making us do a bad thing. We do that out of a desire. Why are we doing it? There are moments at Glastonbury, and they don't come all the time. They don't come at 3 o'clock in the morning when that's not the moment of union. But there are moments of union when you feel like together we are one. That engine drives thousands of people to gather together. And maybe you've experienced this in church. Maybe even this morning. I felt it this morning. I felt this sense of connection between me and my Creator. Fantastic. And of course, we feel this in our relationships. I love this image. Beautiful image. Must have taken ages. It's made of granite. Imagine carving away. Imagine what that does to your hands. Lawrence knows what it does to his hands. He's still suffering from having chiseled stuff away with his hands. Granite stuff. And out of this one lump of granite comes these two beautiful people focused on each other, gazing into each other's eyes. Love it. Oh, here's another picture we looked at last week. The tenderness, the caressing, the unity, the joy, the color in the woman's cheeks, the gaze, the attentiveness of each other, one to the other, the relaxedness, the letting go. And I said last week, this is an icon, isn't it? It's got a halo around it. It's glowing. It's pure, it's beautiful, it's not ugly, it's not cheap. It's grace-filled, it's God-designed, it's beautiful. God has carved into our very bodies the story of the universe. Even if we don't have the Bible to read, we only have to look in the mirror to learn stuff about God. And what we discover as we look at our bodies, or look down at our bodies, or look across at someone else's body, is that there is a story being told us. And what we discover in our bodies, Pope John Paul II, the Catholic Pope, several ago, he said the theology of our body, what God is teaching us through our bodies. He wrote, in fact, he spoke on it for several years, every Wednesday lunchtime. Can you imagine speaking on sex, not just for 3 or 4 weeks, but for 3 or 4 years, every lunchtime? Amazing. He spoke in Latin, and no one understood what he was saying. It's taken quite a long time to work it out. But it was fantastic stuff, and it was all about the theology of our bodies. What we discover in our bodies is that we are designed for union. That thought comes from him. That's our fixed point. When our bodies are being used for stuff and it's not ending up towards union, we ought to not do it. It's a good point. So here we are, beautiful sex. Dear God. What I want to say today is that desires fit a design and are designed to be constrained in some way. I'm going to say that unrestrained desires, or desires not used according to their design, lead us away from their true destination, and therefore they miss the mark. And that's the same word. If you hamartia, it means miss the mark. It's what we translate in our Bibles. It's a Greek word. It means sin. Desires properly constrained, used in line with their true meaning or design, leads us to a good and pure destination. They hit the spot, as it were, and they are good. Desires, if coupled with God's design, will help us reach our destiny. The reason I've put this picture on is because desire is like the rocket engine thing of the enterprise, kind of getting itself to the destination. The plane can't get there without the desire, but it has to be linked. They have to be linked, and they have to be designed in a particular way to work together. I put this on, and I was going through it with Tori. She said, "Can I just check what you're going to say today?" And I put this on, and she said, "Do you know what that looks like?" I don't know if anyone else has already had that thought themselves. No, you're shaking your head, John. You had that thought, hadn't you? You had. It wasn't intentional that it looks like that. And what I'm saying, but you're with me now. What I'm saying is that there is a design to things. Desire is a designed thing. But we need to use desire in a particular way. We need it to work in a particular way in order to reach our destiny. Desires, if disconnected from God's design, will lead us away from our proper destination. I gave my dad a jigsaw for Christmas. And it's because he likes jigsaws, and the whole jigsaw thing he gets. But he also likes maps. And I gave him maps, and I gave him a jigsaw of the inner city of London, which is a bit of town that my dad knows really well, having walked it for many years himself. He would have known the streets. And what he loved was just knowing where the streets were almost immediately, kind of like knowing, oh, that's going to be over here in the West End, and that's going to be over in the East End. And so he didn't take him long. It took me about a week to do the jigsaw, but he really loved each morning. And of course, everyone else in the family that passed through the house kind of helped out. Now, the thing about a jigsaw is that you have a particular way of doing it. How do you do yours? Do you start with the edges? Yeah, we all start with the edges, don't we? We start with the edges. Because once you've got the edges, then you know the next bit. And you start with the big patches of blue, or the stuff that looks the same, the stuff that, if there was a river in the map, then you'd go for the bits of blue in the river. So my dad did that, and the river mapped itself out. And now, if you're like me as a kid, there would be times when you get a piece of jigsaw and you're trying to squeeze it into the gap that you can see in front of you because you want it to be, you want it to work. Yeah? Did you ever do this? And it doesn't work, but you get it in there somehow, and then you carry on. Now, it doesn't take you long as a kid to work out that even if you've got it in there and it's not right, it's better to take it out and start again, rather than leave it there, because it's not going to work until you get it in the right place. We can desire stuff in our lives, and we can force it into being the right thing, but it can be the wrong thing. But it's better to reshape it and put it in the right place. You with me on this? Does that make sense? Of course it does. Here's another illustration of the same thing. To all those who have Volkswagen camper vans, God bless you today. May the Spirit of the Lord fall upon you. I was chatting, and it was great that you've got a T25 to do up. That's very exciting. I'm looking forward to our relationship growing over the next few years. That's fantastic. What I learned when I took my camper van to Radstock every day was that I was very keen to get this thing sorted as quickly as possible. And my impatience, my desire, my longing was very high, very high. But there was, of course, I had to learn, I had bigger desire and not much skill. I had to learn to go at the pace of things. And I had to do things in the right order. The guys in the workshop had a fantastic tool tray, and I would, just kind of start doing stuff without really knowing what I was doing. And I would always be looking for tools from their stuff. And they were so gracious to me that they let me borrow their tools. I didn't always put them back as quickly as they liked, and so they got frustrated because they had to work on other things while I was working on my stuff, and they were looking for the right tool, and they would not use the wrong tool, unlike me, who would use a screwdriver for a nut, just kind of like I would do stuff the wrong way around just to get on with stuff. But they always wanted to use the right tool for the right thing. Some of us are impatient. We have a desire to get it up, to get it sorted, to get it fixed. And so we're backing away or doing something against the very nature of the thing that we are doing. Apply that to your relationships. Sometimes, I believe this is true for not just me, we do stuff out of desire, a good desire. But we force the desire, our energy comes and we force it into a shape that it's not yet ready to be. We're kind of pushing the jigsaw piece into a place it's not yet ready to receive. Or we're trying to do stuff in a way that it's not designed to do. We see the goal, but we want to get there today. And we're impatient for it and we use it in the wrong way. All of us, I believe, probably have, in one way or another, been using our bodies for less than perfect or ideal ways. We are like that person who used a hammer to push in a screw. We're using our bodies in some way, missing the mark kind of ways. So what has sex been designed for? If we could work out what sex has been designed for, what the shape is, then maybe we could get a better fit for this. I want to say 4 things about what I think that the Bible teaches us and also our experience teaches us. And then I want us to reflect on whether this is how we are currently living. First thing, same thing as week 1, fruitfulness. We got this from Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created male and female. He blessed them to be fruitful. We don't need to look very far to work out from our bodies that male and female make babies. This is 101. This is the stuff we teach our children. As mothers have tummies that expand and kids want to know what's going on, we teach them the basics, that what happened, they got together. We flesh this out in different ways. We talk about this thing in different ways, but basically we say men and women get together, they make babies. We're fruitful. Second thing, that's self-evident, isn't it? No one disagrees with that. The meaning of sex is that it makes babies. Yeah, you with me? No one disagrees with that. Good. Second one is that this is about union. Now, the union, I believe that sex is perfectly designed for the union of 2 people, male and female, of heart, body, mind, and spirit. I believe that it's perfectly designed to bring 2 people who are different, who are unique, into a place of union, which is almost mystical. You can make tea, you can build houses together, you can put the children to bed together, you can read stories together, you can go for walks together, you can hold hands. But sex does something else. Yeah? Okay. Genesis 2, I think, makes that clear. It's very clear that Adam is longing for a deep union, not just someone to help him make the tea or put the kids to bed or sort out the farm or work things out. He's looking for bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He's incomplete, and he's looking for someone to make him whole all over again. Really interesting phrase. I believe that our bodies declare that to be true. And the songs that I sang last week, when I grow old, I know I want to be the man who grows old next to you. When I sang that, that's behind that song of two Scottish guys with glasses. They sang that song because they know in their heart of hearts that they long to be united. They're going to be the people who walk 1,000 miles to be with you. Sex is made for union. Third one, sex is made perfectly suited to love. Will you turn to me to some scripture? Would you turn to me to the middle of your Bibles to the Song of Songs? So Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. So get to Psalms in the middle, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs. Page 628, 629. You with me? What have you got? 679, 678 and 679. Thanks, Colin. That's great. Are you with me on this? Have you got the Bible open? Okay, Solomon's first one. Solomon's Song of Songs. This is the top song. This is the number one track. He had lots of other songs about being a good king, about being wise, about being powerful, about how great Israel was, but he had the top song, the Song of Songs. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the maidens love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. Go to chapter 2, verse 3. Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my lover among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. He has taken me to the banquet hall, and his banner over me is love. Strengthen me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am faint with love. My left arm is under my head, and his left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. Picture that if you can. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you by the gazelles and by the does of the field, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Why? Because when it is aroused, it is so strong. Turn to chapter 4. Turn the page. I mean, you can read the rest of it. It's all beautiful. Chapter 4, verse 1. How beautiful are you, my darling? Oh, how beautiful. This is a man to a lover. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats. I don't know is that supposed to be a nice thing? I'm not sure. Descending from Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep. That's also nice, isn't it? Yeah. Just shorn, coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, not one of them is alone. Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with elegance. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your two breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of incense. All beautiful you are, my darling. There is no flaw in you. It's beautiful, isn't it? The whole song goes on like this. One saying to the other, how beautiful, how wonderful, how amazing, how I love you. I desire you. I long for you. I look for you. Come to me. I lay awake waiting for you. Please come to me. It's desiring. It's full. It's passionate. It's rich. We know this. And this is the soundtrack of so many songs and so many films in our own culture. Surely we all know that sex is about love. And lastly, sex, surely, as this passage also describes, sex is about pleasure, the height of pleasure, a beautiful delight, better than apples. Apples point towards it. The beauty of a view point towards it. It's like a beauty. It's enrapturing. It's captivating. It's amazing. And surely our world believes this too. Everybody believes that sex is pleasurable. It is designed for pleasure. These 4 things, beautiful things. These, I would suggest, are the meaning of sex. They are the destination of sex. But what happens if you take the first one away? What happens if you take fruitfulness away? What happens to the meaning of sex when fruitfulness is extracted from the meaning of sex? All of us live in a world of contraception. Ever since I was born, contraception was a non-contentious issue. So I guess that all of us have got used to living in a world where fruitfulness has been taken away from the meaning of sex. Sex no longer means fruitfulness. Isn't that right? Is that? I'm just checking around the room. What's the impact when you take away fruitfulness out of the meaning of sex? When you start changing its meaning and you take something away? Well, we've got used to it, and there were some good reasons why we thought it'd be great to take fruitfulness away from this difficult thing. But what happened was that it shifted the meaning of sex. About the same time that we took fruitfulness away from sex, there was a wave of freedom. People were suddenly liberated to express themselves sexually. And we are still bringing these things to our hearts today, trying to work out whether this is good or bad. What happens if you take away union? Is there anyone that teaches their child, really this is about you becoming completely one with someone else? This is the joining of heart, body, mind, and spirit. Is that what we teach our children? Is that what the essence of sex is when we have sex education, when we are trying to educate our children about what they're doing with their bodies, that they are not becoming just two people doing something together like making supper and still being separate, but no, they are joining themselves into one unity, that they are becoming an entity of oneness rather than separateness. I would say we've scrubbed out that one too. What about love? Well, you'd say, surely, we haven't scrubbed out love. Everyone knows that sex is about love. Have we scrubbed out love in our culture? How many films do you see? How many cop TV programs? How many episodes of Friends or whatever, where people have sex way, way, way before they declare their love for each other? I would say the majority of sex that I see on TV or in films is not love, but is something else. What about you? Do you see love? There's desire, but that's not what I mean. There's attraction, but that's not what I mean. Love, that thing about self-giving, about looking out for the love of the other person, looking into the eyes of the other person and wanting to fill them, wanting to be for them, not trying to take something from them or receive something from them, but giving yourself to the other person. How many of us see this demonstrated in the way that sex is portrayed in our culture? I don't know that we do see love anymore. In fact, what I think is that all we're left with in our culture is pleasure. That this has become the true meaning of sex in our culture. Now, when pleasure is the sole meaning of sex, It leads to all kinds of things. It leads to the reality of where we are. My daughter, when she was 14, I think I mentioned this before, but she was told everyone in her class, it's a new thing, has to be injected or was encouraged to be injected with a virus in order to protect her from getting cancer later on in her life. If we give you the virus now, the virus is the only way you can share this virus. It gives you, I can't remember which kind of cancer, I think it's ovarian cancer. The only way that you can catch this is through sexually transmitted, in a sexually transmitted way, with someone else who's got the virus. So my daughter was, and us as parents, was trying to work out what do we routinely do this so that every 14-year-old in our country is offered a virus, a little bit of sexual transmitted disease in order to protect you. Why? To protect you from love, to protect you from union, to protect you from children? No. But to protect you from people who have only had sex for one reason alone, which is pleasure. And if you have repeated pleasurable experiences with people, a virus can easily be passed on. And so we give people advice about this, and we give them a condom. And the reason we give them condoms is because this is the boundary, the limit of our boundary around sex. You can do it with whoever you want, whenever you want, however you want, how often you want, as long as you use this one boundary of protection. That has become our ethic of sex. What happens when all of the other four are part of the story? I think you get a very different experience of life. I think our children would grow up in a very different world if all four of these things were the meaning of sex routinely in our culture and in our churches. You also get a different experience on the receiving end and on the giving end. When the sex of your life is done in an environment where there is an expectation that this moment of joy could potentially give birth to a child, that changes everything. Changes the way you think about that moment, let me tell you. If this moment could produce a child, I want to know that you are not going to disappear anytime soon. I want to know that you are completely trustworthy. I'm only going to avail myself to you and open myself up to you if I love you, if we are one. In those moments of complete openness and vulnerability, when all these things are present, there is an incredible pleasure. And the ring, the boundary around this is marriage. And it makes sex beautiful. It doesn't guarantee beautiful sex. We all know this. We all know this to be true. But the boundary around it is designed, is given to us in order to give it the best chance of being what it really is, which is beautiful. I didn't have a picture for all the other stuff. You can fill in the blank. Stuff that you do on your own, stuff you do in your head, stuff you do with toys, stuff you do with images, stuff you do with someone else, stuff you do with more than just one other person, stuff you do on a whim, stuff you do because you have an ache in your heart for affection, stuff you do, well, actually you didn't do it, someone did it to you. All this stuff, all this painful stuff is so much part of our culture, so much part of our lives, and it's less than beautiful. It's less than beautiful. Let's switch tone for a moment. I think we need it. Talk about food for a moment, and then we'll finish. We're about to move into a time of eating, so let's talk about food. Here's a beautiful picture of food. And here are the 4 things: fruitfulness, union, love, and pleasure. I believe that food has meaning too. And food has many different kind of meanings, but I think you can overlap the same things, that fruitfulness, union, love, and pleasure are also parts of food. Here's another way of saying that. Food is useful for giving us strength and life. If we don't eat, we die. Food is a great way of getting together, isn't it? And that's why we do it together so much. We create community by doing food. In fact, you become friends with people you eat with, and you don't eat with people you don't like. But to eat with someone means you get closer with them. Food is something that is more enjoyable when you share it. If you hoard it for yourself, it becomes ugly. But if you share your food with others, it becomes beautiful. And food, of course, is pleasurable. It's rich. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Why do we watch food programs? Do we watch it just for pleasure? No, we watch it because it creates a mood in us. Have you seen? Or alternatively, we could use food in another way. We could use food for profit, or we could use food simply for pleasure. And when companies or governments or factories produce food for profit and pleasure, do we get the best food? No, we get the worst kind of food. But when food is in line with its true destination, when it's in line with its true design, it becomes a beautiful thing. Have you seen recently the Bisto adverts? Now, it's trying to sell gravy is a difficult thing to sell. How do you make gravy like something you really go, oh yeah, gravy, yeah, Bisto, yeah, give me some gravy, yes. How do you make gravy great? You don't sell it as gravy, because gravy isn't really about gravy. Gravy is about community. Gravy is about sharing. Gravy is about love. So what do when they put up pictures of this stuff? They've actually created a whole campaign to help us to buy more gravy, about inviting older ladies or older men to come round to your house on Sunday to leave an extra special chair to share your gravy with them. And they show you beautiful films, little adverts of that beautiful moment when an old person is with you and sharing and becoming part of your family, and everyone's happy. Because that's the true meaning of gravy. Isn't it? Let's watch this together. Mikey, I need to turn this up. Tori, we need to go and get some gravy, I think. We need to go and buy some gravy. Do you get the point? They are advertising not the thing in itself. They are advertising the meaning of it. And the meaning of gravy, it happens to turn out to be love. Jesus came and he was faithful to the story. And he said there is a design, and it's really important we protect this design, because this thing is so precious and so beautiful and yet so vulnerable. You must handle this with care. If you want it to be beautiful, trust me, follow me, walk with me. So Jesus met a woman who was thirsty. Her heart was aching for life. And she was at the well. And it was in the middle of the day. And Jesus had this chat about thirst, about aching, about longing. And then he said, go and get your husband. And she said, I haven't got a husband. He said, no, you haven't got a husband. You've had 5 husbands, and the man you're currently living with isn't your husband. And her life opened up. She had been filling her life longing for love, thirsty for life. And Jesus said to her, I am life. Come to me. Come to me. There was another occasion when a woman who was caught in the very act of adultery, they left the man behind. It tells another story. And they brought this woman and they presented her to Jesus and said, Jesus, what do you think? And Jesus bent down and he took his time. He wrote in the ground. And then he stood up, and it says he stood up straight. I love that. He stood up straight with authority, not fearful. He said, he who has no sin. And I think he was saying, he who has no sexual sin, cast the first stone. And gradually, one by one, the men left. Is there no one here to condemn you? He said to the woman. She said, no. Neither do I condemn you. But walk with me. Leave your life of sin. Treasure this treasure. Become beautiful. You are made in the image of God. Align your body with the way it was made. So the question I want to leave you with, as you come forward and receive from Jesus, what do I need from God to help me to live in ways, to live according to the way that he has called us to live? There are all kinds of sexual expressions outside of marriage. All kinds. And today, I am saying all of them don't fit the design. And of course, I am part of that. So I need to ask God, how am I going to get my life into his design? I'm going to have to ask Jesus, how are you going to help me to live according to your design? And you are too. Whatever you're struggling with, whatever your issue is, whatever bit of sexuality or sex, whether you're in marriage, whether you're outside marriage, whether you're single, whether you're divorced, what do we need from God today? Peter said this: God's power has given us everything we need to lead a godly life.